June 25, 1876. The dust of 2,000 Lakota warriors chokes the air. Custer's men are minutes from annihilation, but one man isn't there to die. A teenage Crow scout named Curly is already riding hard, his fists clenched around a stolen Sioux rifle. Behind him, the last gunshots fade. Ahead, a lie that will make him famous or get him killed. This isn't the story you've been told. The Army called him the sole survivor, a hero who escaped Little Bighorn by disguising himself in a dead warrior's blanket. The Sioux called him a coward, but the truth? Curly was never in the fight, and his greatest battle began after the massacre. Why did Custer ignore his warnings? How did a scout who fled become a legend? And why did Curly spend the next 50 years rewriting his own story, while an impostor conned the American West in his name? The real Curly didn't outrun history, he outsmarted it. This is the untold story of the Crow Scout who defied Custer's last stand and the bloody aftermath that no Hollywood film dares to show. But before we continue, please like and subscribe to our channel to support our growing community. Curly, the Crow Scout who outlived Little Bighorn in 1876. Scalps of white men dangled nearby, his fingers tightening around the elk-hilted knife at his hip. The tribal elders summoned their youths. The Veho, white men need scouts, declared the chief, his voice slicing through the whispers. They hunt the Sioux. Abolish the selected were Hairy Moccasin and White Swan, battle-hardened hunters, their skin marked by old wounds. Unlike most Crow boys his age, Curly avoided the chaos of the Plains Wars. Yet his gaze clung to the raiding parties returning with tales that stirred a quiet hunger. Born Oshish in 1859 near the Bighorns, he grew up removed from the bloodshed. His parents, esteemed members of the Absolute Band, schooled him in restraint, lessons that forged his watchful, deliberate ways. By 16, he'd mastered the buffalo hunt, his arrows striking with deadly accuracy. He proved himself not through wild courage, but the shrewdness his mentors admired. His first brush with white settlers came at 12, trading buffalo pelts at Fort Smith. 50 cents a pound, the trader snapped, flinging dyed fabric and iron goods at him. A fine bargain, Curly later mused, marveling at the transaction. Those journeys taught him the power of silence, how to move between worlds unnoticed. As a boy, I avoided trouble, he recalled. But at 18, restlessness took hold. I longed for the warpath. 1876 changed everything. Bluecoats rode into the Crow camp by the Little Bighorn, their uniforms stark against the grass. When the chiefs asked for volunteers to scout against the Sioux, Curly stepped forward without pause. I raised my hand fast, he said, yet as they readied to leave, his brother pulled him close. We have a task, he murmured, eyeing the soldiers. Not here. Follow me to the Tongue River. For days they scoured empty stretches of Montana, tracking nothing. Then Custer's battalion fell. Curly's pulse hammered as he clutched the stolen Sioux rifle. One misstep and he'd lie among the dead. The search yielded no trace of the Lakota bands the Army insisted were close. Resentment simmered. The U.S. Army's disarray grew impossible to ignore. Terry's scouts, their horses stolen by Sioux raiders, drifted through camp like specters. Warning proved vital. Days later, Bravo's sharp whistle froze the party near Tongue River. Through his spyglass, he glimpsed the faint smudge of a Sioux village, 500 lodges by Curly's count, sprawling to the horizon. Doubtful earning with nothing, he seethed, not at defeat, but at the creeping certainty of looming disaster. Bluff's ideal for Sioux snipers loomed ahead. Yet Terry's obsession with the Sioux camp deepened. When Bravo's team reported its shift to Little Rosebud Creek, the general's jaw clenched. No praise, no questions, Curly noted. Terry's reaction was swift and rash. Dismissing Crow warnings about spring floods, he forced the 7th Cavalry across the Yellowstone. On May 8th, chaos followed. Resilia's lone ride to Crow Agency laid bare the rift between the Army and its scouts. Horses thrashed in the torrent, soldiers bogged down by wool uniforms, Springfield rifles swallowed by the gray swell. The water took them like stones, Curly recalled. At least 12 men and 30 horses drowned, a loss later blamed on Terry's refusal to heed native scouts on river patterns. After the failed Tongue River mission, he regrouped with Crow scouts at Clark's Ford, where the wind carried echoes of Lakota war chants. The arrival of Bonnie Bravo and Littleface, mixed-blood scouts fluent in hand signs, exposed the Army's desperation. Bravo, a grizzled Métis fighter with a carbine slung across his back, sized up the Crow recruits. "Bali, you hunt Sioux," he grunted, eyeing Curly's unstrung bow. "Forget tracks, watch for dung fires, their smoke curls slow when cooking bison." "Crony extremely nothing," Curly admitted. "8 horses between us," he muttered, a pittance against the vast plains. Instead, Terry split his forces further, sending Bravo to recover mounts and ordering Curly to meet supply wagons, a move that revealed the Army's brittle logistics. "They fear shadows," Curly whispered as a private flinched at a twig snap. Soldiers crouched behind makeshift barriers, faces pallid as they scoured the bluffs for Sioux marksmen. By April 1876, his world narrowed to hoofbeats and coded signals. In contrast, he moved across the prairie with deliberate care, dismounting to inspect soil for fresh tracks, sniffing for ash. When he found the wagons, mules straining under ammunition crates, he offered no cheer, only a terse nod to the drivers. That evening, camped beside the wagons, Curly honed his blade while soldiers swapped rumors of Custer's approach. The general's tent rose like a pale obelisk. Inside, his energy buzzed, a fitted buckskin jacket, cropped hair, eyes appraising the Crow with measured charm. "Fine scouts deserve finer rewards," Custer declared, doling out $25 per man, $600 total, as Army records later confirmed. Yet his charisma couldn't mask the tension. Terry's camp sprawled along the Yellowstone by June 5, 1876, a beast bleeding disorder. Supply wagons bogged in mud, officers' shouts lost under the far west steamboat's shriek. Reconcile tradition warred with necessity. Scouts daubed war paint, ochre for alertness, charcoal for concealment, while soldiers stared. "Dress like savages, fight like devils," a lieutenant sneered. Modern scholars mark this as the fatal turn. Eurocentric tactics clashing catastrophically with plains warfare. Terry plodded in an ambulance wagon with infantry brass while Bouillet, the Métis interpreter fluent in Sioux and French, dictated terms. Hierarchy crumbled. "Unsuccessfully trails twice," Curly muttered. The Sioux were laughing in the wind. Bouillet's arrival shattered Terry's inertia. "Yellow Shield wants 6 scouts," he announced, eyeing Curly. "You, White Swan, Hairy Moccasin, ride home." The selection wasn't honor. It was calculus, 6 crow eyes to offset Custer's blindness. Aboard the Far West, a golden-curled officer pored over maps, oblivious to scouts' warnings. On June 21st, the steamboat deposited them at Little Rosebud's mouth. Curly stepped forward first, pressing a silver dollar into Custer's palm, a crow-packed sealer. "A gift," he said through Bouillet. As they returned to Terry's camp, the Yellowstone echoed with distant paddle wheels. Bouillet's order, "Break camp, Custer's coming," sent men scrambling. Curly watched a horseless courier board the vessel, grim-faced. The stage was set. Subsidized for Curly, it was simple. The VHO saw land to conquer. We saw it breathing. That night, Mandan drumbeats pulsed as Custer hosted an awkward feast. "Eat well, friends," he urged, offering hardtack and coffee, rations the Crow discreetly discarded. The dancers' coins jingled, a hollow echo of the scouts' $600 payment. Curly noted the veiled condescension. Outraged, "Do we reach their camp?" Curly warned. "Today, only Crows circle." The general chuckled, dismissing the omen. Dawn revealed a land humming with tension. At Little Rosebud's fork, Curly crouched, fingers tracing hoof prints stamped deep in dry earth. The trails split like a serpent's tongue, one veering west toward Bighorn Mountains, the other north into grasslands. Custer, astride his sorrel mare Vic, gestured impatiently. "You take left," he ordered Curly. "Go ahead, take right. Report by sundown." The scouts moved like shadows. Curly's path wound through ravines littered with fresh pony droppings and discarded parfleche bags. By midday, the trails merged near Ash Creek, converging into a scar wide enough for 800 ponies, a chilling detail later confirmed by Cheyenne oral histories. "Close," Curley muttered. Ahead, Custer hummed, "Gary Owen." The scouts exchanged glances. 6 Crow and 72 soldiers followed, companies A to M, their guidance flapping like crimson targets. As columns snaked toward Greasy Grass, Curley's pony snorted at fresh tracks. He dismounted, touching still warm dung. "You find Indians," Custer stated. "I'll do the fighting," reducing them to mere trackers. Unlike Terry, Custer radiated certainty, a trait the Crow distrusted. "A man who doesn't fear the storm," White Swan whispered, "gets struck by lightning." Ahead, smoke smudged the horizon. "Go ahead!" The signal cry. A red-tailed hawk's screech pierced the air. Cresting a ridge, they saw it, a city of 700 lodges by Curley's count. No words were needed. The land itself screamed. June 24, 1876. Custer, convinced of Sioux inferiority, never imagined they'd outthink him. He spurred Vic forward, ignoring Curley's tightened jaw and the absence of Lakota scouts. A fatal oversight. Clustered along the Greasy Grass River, Sioux, Cheyenne, Arapaho. But it was the trophies nailed to willow poles that froze the scouts' breath. Scalps, some blonde as Custer's, swayed beside beards hacked from soldiers' corpses. Curley dropped the grisly evidence, a scalp still crusted with blood, onto the map table. "Bluecoats came before us," he said, noting shattered Spencer cartridges. The trails merged. "All Sioux are there." Custer dismissed the warning. Instead, he fixated on a scalp's golden strands. "The Great Father sent me to conquer these savages," he declared, voice steady but fingers trembling. Its edges bit into his skin, a silent oath. June 25, 1876, 4:30 a.m. Curley's breath fogged in the pre-dawn chill as he scanned the ridgeline. 5 Crow scouts moved like ghosts, ponies' hooves muffled by dew-soaked grass. "If they kill me, they'll still suffer. If they spare me, they'll suffer more." Historians still dissect this moment. Was it resolve or fatalism? Curley saw neither, only a man bargaining with ghosts. Above them, Mandan scouts clambered up a sandstone bluff, silhouetted against the rising sun. "Go ahead," hissed a curse. Custer leaned forward, eyes glittering. "How many?" "More than the stars you count." "Go ahead," replied. The general's next words hung like a death sentence. "You Crow chiefs." The offer reeked of desperation, and lost. They returned at midnight to find Custer's tent aglow. The general sat bareheaded, scribbling notes as his cook ladled rancid pork onto tin plates. "I may not survive this summer," he admitted, locking eyes with the scouts. "But live, and I'll make you chiefs." As Custer dismissed them, Curley lingered. Outside, the night air carried drum beats from the Greasy Grass, Sioux victory songs throbbing like a pulse. "Fools," Go Ahead spat. "They'll paint us for the Sioux." He jerked his chin at Curley. "Tell Custer, keep those dogs in the valley." In his palm, Curley clutched the silver dollar given to Custer days earlier. "He hears only his own ghost," he muttered. For Curley, leadership wasn't bestowed. It was earned through isep poishis, courage in the tribe's eyes. He nodded silently, pocketing the empty promise. Curley galloped back, the coyote howl he'd heard hours earlier still prickling his neck. At camp, he found Custer squinting at a map, Major Reno scowling beside him. "The Mandan must stay low," the general muttered, ignoring the critical detail. "The Sioux moved camp, up Little Rosebud toward Greasy Grass," Curley urged. Custer, polishing his Remington revolver, didn't look up. "Eat, then take 2 sentries and watch the hills." At first light, Curley jolted awake to shouts. Through morning cookfire smoke, he spotted their ponies gathering. White Swan and Hairy Moccasin galloped in, panting. "The Sioux are close." Custer waved a dismissive hand. "They're eager, let them run." The reply was pure Custer, bold, reckless, deaf to Crow pragmatism. By midday, the scouts' worst fears materialized. The 7th Cavalry descended Reno Creek at a trot, Curley guiding them past an abandoned Sioux lodge. Inside lay 2 warriors, dead for days, faces blackened in mourning. "Bad medicine," White Swan whispered. Only the Crow understood. The Sioux had split forces, leaving false trails, a tactic Sitting Bull perfected to lure enemies into overextension. "Like a deer in firelight?" Go Ahead muttered. Curley rode alone to Custer's tent. "The trail leads west. What do you command?" Custer's eyes lit. "Then we'll chase them." Curley bit back frustration. The command reached Talent Creek by dusk, but Custer halted abruptly, refusing to advance. Scouts argued bitterly. "He hesitates," Curley noted. By 3:15 p.m., Custer's battalion forded the river. Guidance flying, Curley lingered on a knoll. A mounted scout scribbled a message. "Hurry, large camp." Custer read it and smirked. "Charge now, that ends their journey." Bullets hissed past Curley's ears as he crouched behind granite. His cartridge belt hung light, 3 rounds left. Across the ravine, a Sioux warrior lay sprawled. Ahead, the Little Bighorn's waters churned red. Custer ignored it, handing Curley a slip for Reno. "Tell him to attack." Reno's hasty reply changed nothing. As gunfire erupted behind him, Curley's pony skidded down the coulee. In his saddlebag, the uneaten hardtack Custer had given him rattled like bones. The Sioux encampment, 1,800 lodges by later estimates, sprawled across the valley. The land had chosen its dead. In death, the warrior's Winchester still hung across his chest. Curley lunged, seizing the rifle and ammunition pouch. The man's paint-streaked face, frozen mid-snarl, mirrored the chaos around them. From the eastern ridge, the valley unfolded like a nightmare. Bodies littered the grass. In the distance, a lone figure in blue stood encircled. Custer. For hours, Curley hugged the earth near a corpse, the stench of blood and gunpowder thickening as Lakota war cries drowned Custer's final volleys. At dusk, he crawled uphill. By dawn, Curley's stolen horse staggered into Terry's camp. The general's aide stared, dismounted, hands shaping desperate pantomimes. No interpreter needed. Orders came anyway. For 36 hours, Curley crisscrossed the battlefield, delivering dispatches between Terry, Reno, and the steamboat far west. Near Last Stand Hill, he passed burial crews stacking corpses like firewood. One soldier clutched a photograph of a woman, her face smudged with dirt. Curley looked away. On June 27th, as the far west prepared to carry wounded downriver, Curley stood at the gangplank. Behind him, smoke curled from the valley where Custer's bones lay unclaimed. No speeches honored the Crow Scouts, no medals. Kneeling, he piled grass into a mound, 262 men, then scattered it wide. Terry paled. Just a final dispatch, its ink smeared by rain. Curley rode home to the Bighorns, his story silenced for decades by an army eager to bury its blunders. Yet on wind-scoured ridges, the land remembers. Each inch gained, a battle. A Crow Scout's choices, a general's hubris, and unmarked graves whispering truths no dispatch could carry. Curley lived to be 96 years old, outlasting Custer, the frontier, and even the myths that tried to define him. He was called a hero, a coward, a liar. But in the end, he was simply a man who walked between two worlds, never fully trusted by either. The real tragedy? His truth was buried long before his body. While imposters sold his story to newspapers, the real Curley kept silent, watching as history twisted his name into legend. The Battle of Little Bighorn wasn't the end for Curley. It was the beginning of a lifetime of battles, against memory, against betrayal, against a nation that preferred a good lie to a hard truth. What's your take? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories.